Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Well, as you can tell, this video is slightly different because it's more than just me. This is my friend Mike, and Mike's a good friend of mine. We go to the same martial arts dojang together, and welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Little background on Mike. Mike is a U.S. Navy veteran, served on the USS Guadalcanal back in the day. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
He's also an avid shooter and sportsman. Mike was at the range with me when I was ringing steel at 100 yards with a Glock 19.
Yep.
So, you know, he can testify to me doing that. Mike is also into the martial arts in a big way. You hold a black belt in Taekwondo.
Right.
You hold a skunk belt, which is
sometimes referred to as a deputy black belt.
Right, in combat Hapkido.
Right.
You do Tai Chi.
Right.
And you do weapons training with Eskrima and with bow staff.
Bow staff, and now we're being introduced to the Joe staff.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Okay. So Mike has an extensive martial arts background. I know that I've talked to you, the audience, about my experiences in Taekwondo, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and then combat Hapkido. So we're going to approach this from like a self-defense standpoint, because both of us are martial artists, both of us obviously are shooters, and we each bring something to the table, but one of which is our passion for helping folks and helping to teach others. So Mike, tell me a little bit about why you chose to get into combat Hapkido after already possessing a black belt in Taekwondo.
Well, I was introduced to Hapkido, traditional Hapkido, when I was studying for my black belt. And what I found interesting about it, it taught me how to fall without getting hurt. And I thought, well, you know, as I get older, that's something that I might be interested in learning. And then years went by, I didn't find a local school. The closest one was up in Ames, and that's about 45 to 50 minutes away.
Right.
And in the wintertime, it'd be difficult. So I just happened to find the school locally that I could go to, but it was called combat Hapkido. And that sort of turned me off right away because it sounded like something too violent, you know, something that military people would need to know to not only take somebody down, but take them out. And I was thinking more along the lines of self-defense, more of a civilian type. And what I found out was that's exactly what type of training this is. In fact, they changed the name from combat Hapkido to Chon-Tu Kwan Hapkido. It means the same thing in Korean, but for civilian use, it's not as threatening as it sounds.
Right.
So once I started taking classes, I just got hooked because it seems to be so practical. It fills the void. In Taekwondo, most of the activity has to take about this far away, or maybe a little bit further. Yes. Once we get in closer, our defenses and our offenses seem to wane rapidly.
Right, because you know you're dealing with extended stances, you know, extended kicks.
Correct.
But you know, close quarters combat.
Right.
You know, the system does have a few holes.
It falls apart quickly.
Yeah.
Well, that's where combat or Chon-Tu Kwan Hapkido comes in. This is in close. The closer we get, the better we are. And it seems to be anti-intuitive to run into danger, but the closer we can get, the less people can do. And then when we start applying the joint locks and the pressure points, you find that compliance comes rather quickly.
Yes. Yeah. Some of us say, you know, Hapkido is where pain meets compliance. Yes. But from a self-defense standpoint, how valid do you find the combat Hapkido system to be? Very good,
especially for people who are not exactly athletic. The founder of it is not he claims not to be an athletic person. His name is John Pellegrini, Grandmaster John Pellegrini. When he got out of the Italian, I believe he's in the Italian paratroopers, and he wanted to teach something that was quick to learn and could be effective. And so that's the birth of it. And then as he started teaching civilians, he found out that it's even it's a very effective thing for people to learn who aren't that athletic like he said to be. So you don't have to worry about the high kicks. You don't have to worry about the falls as much, although we do learn how to fall.
Right.
But the things what you might see on YouTube, where people stand up straight and they fall down from a standing position, or they might jump up to fall down, we don't learn that in combat Hapkido. We learn to fall down safely. We can fall down by just bending our legs and then going forward. It's dramatic to watch when you find traditional Hapkido on YouTube, and it's fun to if you could do that. But
yeah.
I can't. So that's why it's valuable for me.
And a little disclaimer, I think that Mike and I are probably the oldest fellows in the dojo. So it's the way that it goes. But I have found it to be a very effective system. And what Mike alluded to with the joint locks, that's one thing that I really liked about combat Hapkido was the employment of joint locks and how easy it is to get somebody to leave you alone, to break away. This goes into self-defense, it goes into firearms, because, for example, excuse me here, Mike, let's say you're a concealed carrier and you have a gun on you. Well, the thing is, a lot of times people get ambushed, and in an ambush attack, especially if somebody is close like this, you do not have the ability, the majority of the time, to actually draw your gun in order to extricate yourself from the situation. I mean, what you've got is what you've got. And the good thing about combat Hapkido is that it shows you how to do a breakaway, like a simple breakaway. If you'd grab me, you know, Mike can hold on to me really, really hard if he wants. And the thing is, how do a lot of fights start sometimes? They start by people grabbing you. Well, it can teach you simple ways of breaking away and then moving back from the person. Gives you options where you can break away and strike and do other things as well. If you're tied up, for example, let's say that I grab Mike here by the lapel and I'm like, you know, hey buddy, you know, give me all your money. What they don't know is what Mike can do next.
Go for the eyes, probably. It was called an outside wrist lock.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Take him down.
That's very effective.
Yeah, there's a lot of different techniques that you can learn. Like if you grab him with both hands, you might grab a hand and just go for the suprasternal notch right up here. Yeah, take him right down.
I think that you, yeah. I think you got the microphone on that one. Sometimes people will grab you like this, and then here we can do something called a Z lock or an S lock, which automatically, you know, drops it. Yeah. Mike hates my Z locks, by the way.
They're unpleasant.
Yeah, but it's basically close quarters types of things, you know, to basically eliminate that threat, allow you to create distance to get away. Now, how do you feel about, now before you answer the question, in our dojang, in our school, we have seen a tremendous influx in women coming to class. There have been many times recently where we have been completely and utterly outnumbered by women in class. So what do you think drives that, and how effective do you feel that something like combat Hapkido is for women and self-defense?
Well, I think what's driving it is that more women are understanding that they are going to be the first line of defense against any kind of attack. And that's why they're coming through the door. And we want to see more and more and more come in. Because if we get to a tipping point someday where a predator doesn't know a person's ability and assumes just because we have a young lady there that she can't take care of herself, they might find out that that's not the situation. And they're going to be sorely surprised. Yeah,
but you know, that's also good for, you know, the young lady involved.
Right.
So as an example, I was working with a 12-year-old yellow belt on her yellow belt techniques, And this one particular move, I was watching her footwork, and you know, when she came up, it's on the one that we call the motorcycle. So as she comes up to do a strike, you know, she got me right in the jaw, and she hit hard. My neck just went whack like that, and 12-year-old, this tall, yeah, she could deliver quite a punch.
I had a white belt. She was very young, maybe 8 years old. And it was a technique in white belt, if you wouldn't mind, where you take the wrist and you start twisting it around, and then you do a fall from that. When she was doing it, she was reciting out loud. First you take your hand, then you twist the wrist. And she twisted it way too fast, just like you would do in real life. It shot pain up here, right up through my head. I mean, just bam, like that. And this is from a little girl that all she did was just take my hand, and she had the right grip, and she knew the technique, and she just twisted it like that. Painful.
Yeah, and the one thing about female students is that I find that they're like a sponge, that they are so teachable because they're so hungry for knowledge. And the same thing goes for firearms. There's this tremendous influx of women into concealed carry, as many of you know, and if she hasn't fired a gun in her life and you're giving her instruction, you would be amazed at how quickly women can shoot accurately. And they'll just, you know, follow instruction, and suddenly they're great. But in martial arts, you know, we've seen a lot of women come in that, as Mike said, they just simply get everything down, and there you go.
That's right. Some of the things that we talk about also in martial arts is, the first rule is don't get in trouble. You know, the situational awareness is big time. The founder of the combat Hapkido, he has this acronym called PEDA, P-E-D-A. It's perception. You have to know your surroundings. You have to listen to noises. You have to know if you're in a situation that's dangerous or not. You want to know that right off the bat. You have awareness. You want to know if this, what you're perceiving is a danger or not. If it's not, and usually the case it's not, you can continue on, but keep you aware of what's going on. If it is a dangerous situation, you start making decisions. What do you want to do? Ideally, you want to get out of the situation. You don't want to confront somebody. But if you can't, then what are you going to do? What kind of a maneuver can you do? Can you just start yelling and screaming? Maybe that's enough to get rid of the person. Just get attention coming your way. And then the last one is the action. What type of action are you going to take?
And that folds into something as simple as making noise.
Right.
Because most violent predators out there, they're predators and they're ambush predators, and they don't like it when attention is called to them. So what Mike was saying about situational awareness is very, very true. A lot of predators don't like it if you make them. Meaning that if you notice that somebody is, your gut feeling is like, you know, they're not right, you've got certain threat indicators that are lighting up on this individual, sometimes all it takes is for you to turn your head, look at the individual again, you know, see them eye to eye, and then they shuffle off and they go somewhere else. You begin making a lot of noise, like Mike was saying, again, they don't like the attention. So a lot of times they'll tend to flee, but sometimes you're literally backed into a corner.
Right.
That's where situational awareness is extremely critical, because in today's day and age, we see so many examples of people that don't have it.
Yes, unfortunately.
So when it comes to the martial arts, we're talking about combat Hapkido, but we've also got a pretty broad background between the two of us.
Right.
A lot of people are going to say, is there one martial art system that is better than another?
Yes, and the answer to that is there one round of ammunition that's better than the other? Is there one type of firearm that's better than the other? And the answer is a yes and no. It depends on the situation. And it also depends on your interest in something. For instance, if you choose to carry a .44 Magnum, fine, it's up to you. But if you're somebody that's maybe smaller in stature, that may not be the weapon to choose. The same thing with martial arts. You can find some martial arts studios that are very athletic and you learn a lot from that. And if you've got a passion for that, that's the studio you might want to look at. If you're going to a studio and you feel uncomfortable, you may not want to continue. So you have to look for martial arts that you're comfortable doing and that you'll keep doing. Because just as in firearms, where practice, 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 that's what you do in the martial arts. You practice, practice, practice. You develop the muscle memory. You do it over and over and over. You do it 10,000 times. The same type of technique over and over. And why? Because when you get in that situation where panic sets in, your body will know what to do. Your brain doesn't have to think about it.
Yeah, you go to that primal reptilian part of the brain that, you'll hear it in firearms training a lot, that, your performance is going to drop to the lowest level of your training. And so, yeah, there are so many similarities, and that's why you will hear me referring to firearms a lot as a martial art, because it's about economy of motion and all of those types of things. One thing that I really like about combat Hapkido is you can have the economy of motion without looking like you're in some kind of a kung fu movie. It doesn't take much. It only takes just a few degrees to make somebody go down, to get them to break a hold. And that's why you'll practice the same thing 10,000 times or even more than that.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration, by the way.
No.
I mean, that's really what happens.
Right, because as you're going up the belt structure, I mean, you're not only working on what you have currently, but everything that came before you. And then the higher you get in belt rank, then you end up helping others that are just coming into it brand new. So again, you're still doing all these same repetitions. So it's just like with firearms. You're doing draw strokes, you're doing the presentation, you're coming up to target, you're doing all that. So it's very similar. It's just using what you have right here instead of using a firearm. Now, you have also taken training in martial blades concepts, right?
Yes.
And how did you find that to be?
That's another good weapon to use. Theory is that for the martial blades people that I've studied under, and these are just one-day seminars, by the way, they said you should always have a weapon on you. It might be a firearm, it might be a knife, but it should be something. If you can't get to it, you need to have some empty hand skills. So that's where some type of martial arts comes in. But the empty hand skills, carrying a weapon, these things are really things that you have to do on a daily basis. Practice, practice, carry them. Don't be without them, if you can possibly be without them. We have situations where we have to leave them in the car, leave them at home. True. And that's when you have to have empty hands.
Right. So is there anything that you would like to add?
It's just that if you're interested in martial arts, investigate it. Go find a studio or a dojo that you're comfortable being in. Find something that you know that you're going to keep going to year after year after year. It's something that you can develop a passion for pretty easily if you find something you like. And there's all types of it. There's just tons of different techniques, from grappling to acrobatics, and anything in between.
Well, and the one thing that I'll say about the dojang that we go to is you'll find a lot of like-minded people at certain places, and that's what I found at our academy, is current and former law enforcement, current and former military. And so we have like this running little joke, which really isn't a joke, that after class we have what?
Social hour.
Yeah, the Combat Hapkido Social Club. And the thing is there are so many people that are interested, in firearms training. I mean, it's all good. It's really great to be able to associate with people of like minds. That is something that makes it fun. It makes it something that you're looking forward to, which means that you're going to do it more and more and more. The other thing that I'll add in closing is, in a unexpected consequence, when I started combat Hapkido, it actually helped me with my pistol shooting. And Mike's looking at me funny because he's seen the videos that I've done about, you know, working with grip strength and everything else. But the interesting thing is when I started into combat Hapkido, it was probably right after, you know, I got my yellow belt and I began to work with you and others on a regular basis with a lot of the joint locks, like say finger lock dance, for example. Okay, something like this, what we call a finger lock dance. What is that doing? That's hyperextending, that's doing a lot of things. Mike has got things practiced so well that I would come home and my hands would hurt. You know, and it'd just be like, oh man, you know, he really zinged me, he got me on this. But if I have my hand here, do whatever you want, gooseneck, I don't care. You'll just get an idea of how everything gets manipulated. Like there's a center lock. See how everything gets torqued? Okay, the unintended consequence of this was, for a couple of months, I'm going, ay, 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 you know, I'm sore, my wrists are sore, and you're getting quite the workout in the upper body. Well, I talked to my chiropractor about it. After about a couple of months, the discomfort went away, and one day he's like, well, you know, have you been to the range lately? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how's your shooting been? I'm like, man, you know, my groups are really, you know, they're right where I want them to be. And he stops for a second. He's like, yeah, that's what the Hapkido did for you. I'm like, what? And he's like, work hardening, because you're working all of these muscles, and even though, you know, working on the grippers, you know, the flexors and everything else, it's not the same thing as the resisting that you get when you're doing, you know, and manipulating each and every little joint. So an unintended consequence that was actually a good one was it helped stabilize things even further. Where when I first went into it, having been in martial arts that had a really hard form, like, you know, Taekwondo and Kung Fu, where you're doing a lot of strikes, it's like, I wonder how that's going to affect my shooting, if it's going to affect it in a detrimental way. But combat Hapkido actually helped, and it's because of the joint manipulations, it's because of some of the moves that you put on me, where it's just like you said, you know, you get pain shooting up there, and it's like, oh man, you know, gee, thanks, Mike. And the other thing is, this guy's really good with pressure points. So, you know. Anyway, anything else that you want to add?
That's probably good for now.
Okay. I know this has been a long video. If you stuck through it like this, feel free to ask questions, because everybody needs to be responsible for their own safety. Me, Mike, you, we've all got to be responsible for ourselves. So if you have questions, ask. Please ask, by all means, and we'll try to answer them for you. So until next time, everybody, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging in there, and be safe out there, and have a good one.